4 Food for Life webinars for our early years audiences. The first one was a session on creating menus that are compliant with the early years voluntary food and drink standards. That was last year, back in June 22. In October 22, we ran a session on maintaining healthy and sustainable menus while costs rise. And today's session is a recipe to grow, play and learn. So focusing on tea and snacks. And within the series, we've got one more webinar scheduled for autumn this year, which is going to be around exploring taste and texture. We've put these webinars on in response to needs from our Food for Life early years settings. Hello, welcome new people that have just joined us. We're just kicking off. So put these webinars together based on the needs that are being surfaced in settings on a day-to-day basis. We put the webinars together to frame a package of support for you and your teams, making healthy and sustainable diets accessible, affordable and appealing in your settings. Jen, can you move on to the next slide, please, Jen? Oh, I've done that one. Can you move on to the next one? And just a reminder, yeah, that all of the recordings from all of these previous sessions and this one will be available on the, where are they available? On the Skills Hub? Yeah, on the Skills Hub. Brilliant. So we're now on to the second slide. So yeah, at Food for Life, we're working towards this vision in which every child has access to healthy and sustainable meals every day. And importantly, and most relevant to today's session, we want these meals and the conversations around them to help children set the habits of a lifetime. So we want children from Food for Life settings to step out into their lives empowered to make choices that are good for them, good for the planet. And I guess you all want that too, which is why you're here today. So the ideas for the new resources that we're going to share with you today came from some brilliant work that nurseries we work with in Nottinghamshire were doing. And we explored with them the challenges of providing healthy and enticing snacks and teas. And we know that often nursery cooks aren't on site at tea time. And we know that snacks and teas are much more important to the nutrition of under 5s than they are for those of us that are over 5. So our training team has devised some brilliant and engaging resources that will support you to create positive food experiences around snack time and tea time in a way that feeds the curiosity and the instinct for play for the children that are in your care. So today, Lee Harland and Faye Walters from our training team are going to bring these resources to life. So you're ready to share them with your staff, with your cooks, children and parents, or in your settings. So we'd encourage you to please ask questions and be ready to share your experiences. You're the real experts. You're the ones that are living this on a day-to-day basis. So we really encourage you to participate as fully as you want to. And before I pass over to Faye and Lee for the main event, we've got a couple of questions that we'd like to ask you to help sort of frame today's conversation. So we'll share them in the chat, but we're interested to know, what are you hoping to get out of the session today? And secondly, what questions do you have about play, food and food education? So I'll have a little look at the, oh, thanks, Jen. See that they've appeared in the chat. So yeah, it'd be interesting just to reflect on those questions for a minute. Pop your answers in the chat. We can have a look and see what comes through, and then hopefully we can make sure they're answered, and we'll have a little bit of time at the end to pick up on some of those questions and make sure that you've got what you wanted out of the webinar today, and that we have some time available to answer those questions that you've got about play, food and food education. So have we got anything? Nothing coming through on the chat. Oh, we got a little something. Always exciting when a new message dings in. We've got something from Nikki, hoping to get some new ideas for healthy snacks to try and taste in messy play activities, which sounds like a lot of fun. And hopefully the resources that we've got coming up will help with that. Keep your questions, thoughts, reflections coming in through the chat, and like I said, we'll have plenty of time at the end to pick up on those and make sure that we do our best to answer them. But if there's nothing else coming through just now, are we ready for the main event? Let's hand over to, I don't know who's going first. I will introduce you as a double act to Lee and Faye.
Thanks, Adam.
Hi, I'm Faye and I'm one of the Food for Life training team, and I'm going to share the sort of launch of our resources today with Lee, so that you know what we're putting out there to hopefully support your Food for Life work back in your settings. So the aims of today, really, to set the scene, Adam's already touched on this actually, the thinking behind our resources that we're sharing is the aim that every child has access to a healthy and sustainable meal to set the habits of a lifetime. And to support this happening, the resources engage and involve children in their food and the choices that they will make. The session will introduce you to these resources and demonstrate an integrated approach to food education, with the aim that they provide sort of, you know, an off-the-shelf set of ideas that can bring together growing and cooking with what the children will be eating at different times throughout their day with you. Next slide, please, Jen. You have the next slide, Jen. Oh, the one before. Just back one. What you will take away. Maybe it's a bit slow to
That's it.
Show.
Yeah, it must be.
Okay, what you will take away. So an understanding around how these early years resources link to the early years foundation stage criteria, and an increased understanding of our award criteria. And today we'll very much sort of focus on the food education elements of the award. And an increased confidence in planning and delivering practical, you know, cooking and growing activities, especially within those sort of tight time frames that you work within. So sort of, you know, an improved knowledge, if you like, of growing and cooking in your setting, and ultimately you will have those new resources to take away. So our tea and snacks resources, we will share the link to where you can find them on our Learning and Skills Hub at the end of the session today. Next slide, please, Jen.
Thank you. Okay, so I'm Lee. I'm part of the training team as well. So I'm just going to take you through some of the documents that you will be very familiar with, I'm sure, before we kind of launch into the main event. I'm sure everybody is familiar with what's on the screen, maybe not word for word, but certainly aware of its content and its aims. So the framework, the early years foundation stage, is mandatory, as we all know, for all early year providers in England from the 1st of September 2021, including maintained schools, non-maintained, independent schools, and all providers on the early years register. The early years foundation stage, basically it sets the standards that all early year providers must meet to ensure that children learn and develop well, and are kept really healthy and safe within your setting. It promotes teaching and learning to ensure that children's school readiness, and gives children the broad range of knowledge and skills that provide the right foundation for a really good future through school and life. So all of our resources that we're going to launch make the links back to these 7 stages of learning, and highlight these within the resource for your reference. So we've done the work for you. The idea of these new resources are to make your lives easier within your settings and give you as practitioners the confidence to pick up and deliver these activities with the children. They're designed to be really fun, simple, and can also be tailored to meet the needs of your children. Next slide, Jen, please. So there's a link to a video that we're going to watch in a moment. This video was created, as Adam mentioned earlier, We actually delivered a celebration event in Nottinghamshire last year. The event was, it was a really practical celebration event whereby early year practitioners made a number of simple yet really tasty dishes. Oh, stop. On a carousel basis to visually see how easy it was to prepare the likes of a tasty snack, lunch or tea offering within a setting with very little equipment. At the end, we all sat down after the event and enjoyed the likes of, we made fruity couscous, flatbreads, homemade hummus, and a variety of fruity salads. And from this event, the feedback from the practitioners was that they would really benefit for some practical pick up and deliver resources that could be used back in their settings, which linked up all of the learning outcomes. So we listened, and here we have them. Well, two out of the 4, a series of 4 resources looking specifically today at tea and snacks. So the film's just a couple of minutes long, so enjoy.
My name's Chloe Smee. I'm Senior Programme Manager at Food for Life. Food for Life recognises the vital importance of the first 1,000 days of a child's life for mental and physical development. A Food for Life nursery goes one step further, giving children a really rich understanding of good food that will set them up as a healthy food citizen for life. We're here today in a very sunny corner of Nottinghamshire to celebrate the brilliant work that some of the nurseries that have been involved with our Food for Life Nottinghamshire project have led over the past 2 years.
I'm Steph Morrissey. I work for Nottinghamshire County Council as Public Health Commissioning Manager. We've started working with Soil Association with their Food for Life Awards about nearly 2 years ago now, and we asked them to work with 7 nurseries across the whole of the county to support them through the Food for Life Award and to make those small changes and improvements to make a big difference for children's nutritional intake.
I'm Laura Jones, Nursery Manager of the Learning Tree Nursery. As part of the Food for Life work we've been doing, our main focus at the beginning was adapting our menus and making sure that they were all homemade. And as part of that, when we're showing parents and visitors around new ones, we use that to be proud of and explaining what it's about. So making sure that our food is locally sourced, making sure that the children are part of that. So we're proud to be a Food for Life accredited nursery and definitely use it, to promote the nursery. The highlights for us have been our growing area in the garden. We tried to experiment with some different foods to grow. So we've done sweet corn this year, we've done pumpkins for the first time, we've done kale. So all those things that the children have been part of, and they've been watching them grow, watering them, helping weed the garden, all of which the children can see the success, and we're just getting to the point now we're ready for picking.
We all know that if you start eating well from a really early age and start those habits from a really early age, then by the time you're 5 and 10 and 15, you'll have those habits embedded, and you'll hopefully have a real joy for healthy eating and eating well, which is a really important aspect of sort of childhood obesity and preventing that.
The benefits it will have for the children is that they know where food comes from. They've grown it themselves, and all that has an impact. A sense of achievement, a sense of pride. Of course they want to eat that poddy pea that's just come off. They've grown it, they want to try it.
Children in a Food for Life early years setting won't just be given delicious, fresh meals every day. They'll grow to understand why a healthy diet matters and the role of the food they eat in the world around them.
We want to grow this.
Get involved. It's a brilliant project.
We want to celebrate and empower the fantastic staff that are giving our very youngest children a real appetite for life.
It's a focus for the whole nursery. And, on the backs of a COVID outbreak, it's been nice to do something and get our teeth stuck into and promote the nursery in a different way.
We know through the thorough evaluation that Food for Life Soil Association have been doing that this is making a real impact. It's improving the knowledge and skills of practitioners and the confidence they have in nutrition, and it's also making a difference to the food that children are actually eating. So we're really looking forward to working with the Soil Association in the future to do that on a bigger scale.
Thanks, Jen. So I'm sure that video has given you some real food for thought and ideas already, maybe creeping to the front of your minds about kind of what could be done in your settings. going forwards. And it was a real pleasure to work with these guys and just see it kind of come to life, really. So that takes us on to just a bit of a recap on the early years voluntary and food and drink standards, which again is another document which I'm sure you're all very familiar with, and we did touch on this in the last webinar. As the slide highlights, children who attend nursery all day must be provided, and by all day we mean 8 AM to 6 PM, must be provided with breakfast, lunch, which includes a main and a dessert, tea, including main and dessert, and 2 to 3 snacks per day, which is a lot of eating. And we did have a discussion about this from the previous previous webinars about how much children actually eat in one day. But the link will be put into the chat for anybody who missed the previous webinars, just so that you can have a bit of a catch up on those. We talked in detail about menu planning and how many meals, for example, should be served in one day, and the importance of a nutritionally balanced offering. And our new resources focus on these standards and give lots and lots of practical ideas of cooking and growing for a given meal of the day. We've already mentioned that we're going to be launching tea and snacks today. And the recipes in these new resources are aimed to be really inclusive, cheap, easy to make, meet the standards, but most importantly, are really tasty. The idea is to use these activities and recipes within your settings so that children are becoming really familiar with new foods and where they come from and where food comes from. And it also gives you some more creative ideas as practitioners to present to your children. As we all know, our children eat regularly, so we often can run out of ideas on what to serve them and what activities that we can actually do with them around food. So I'll pass over to Faye for the next couple of slides.
Okay, thanks, Lee. So looking at the links with our early years award criteria, the resources we're sharing, as I mentioned, first and foremost linked to our food education criteria. Each of the resources has a recipe or recipes that the children can be involved with making, as well as involved with exploring and growing some of the ingredients that they use. With criteria 3.1 around growing, the tea resource, for example, includes the growing of herbs, and the snacks resource involves the growing of peas and beans. And to support 3.2 around cooking, these produce are then used by the children in the making of garlic and herb bread for tea, and pea and mint dip and broad bean bruschetta for snacks. Next slide, please, Jen. Okay, and the resources do also touch on our food leadership criteria, as the children are being involved, being consulted with about what's being provided for them at tea and snack times. And this involvement, the investment in their food through growing herbs, for example, and finding out which tastes and flavours they enjoy, can lead to children being prepared to try things that they previously might have refused. And it's kind of setting them on a pathway of making good food choices and being really engaged with where their food comes from and what constitutes healthy food. Equally, the activities within these resources are perfect for sending home as well, to engage families with the healthy recipes and with the growing activities. And once these activities and the approach are embedded in your setting, there is the opportunity to sort of expand that out, and look at involving your settings community by, potentially inviting grandparents to come in and help with growing, perhaps a walk to the local allotment site to see ingredients from these recipes being grown, and inviting families in to sample the recipes that the children are involved with making for their snack and tea time. Next slide, please, Jen. Thank you. So we'll have a closer look at the tea resource. So this one is bringing together growing and cooking activities relating to the garlic and herb bread that I mentioned. On the left here on this slide is the front page of the resource, and this and all the other resources are formatted in the same way. This page summarises what activities it contains and also their links to the early years foundation stage. Next slide, please, Jen. So in our tea resource, we've got the following activities. Firstly, our herb and matching game and exploring taste and smell. Here, the activity asks children to match herb plants with a set of picture cards, which gives you the opportunity to introduce them to new herbs, new flavours. And with this initial matching activity, there is the chance to do a bit of, touching of the leaves, crushing and smelling the herbs. A great chance for you to sort of invite the children to express their ideas about what each herb smells like, if it reminds them of anything. So really encouraging and expanding their vocabulary. And obviously, if they feel happy to do so, and obviously not insisting that they do, encourage them to taste each herb, not necessarily swallow it, but pop it in their mouth. And again, try to describe its flavour and decide ultimately if they like it or not. This can start that process off of deciding, perhaps as a group, which two herbs are most popular and what they might then use when they make their garlic and herb bread recipe. Next slide, please, Jen. So secondly, in our tea resource, there's ideas for making a herb planter, a great chance for the children to practice some of their sort of fine motor skills using kind of simple tools to fill containers with compost, handle and plant seeds and water and nurture them appropriately. In the resource, there's some ideas around using old wellies, milk cartons, plastic bottles, and perhaps for something more substantial, sort of old wooden pallets to make your herb planters from. It really doesn't have to cost anything. I think there's that sort of sense sometimes that growing can be quite costly, but actually it's cheap and cheerful, what you can get your hands on. There's a picture along the bottom there of that resource where a nursery have used sort of half a plastic bottle. The children have painted it, they've filled it with compost and planted some herbs and hung it on the fence, and it looks really fun and really engage, just the right thing for them to be able to handle and look after themselves. So it's really a case of letting your imaginations run wild with that one. And we've also included in this resource all of the growing cards for the herbs that we focused on. So you have all that information to hand as to when to plant each herb, the growing advice around that particular herb, and tips for harvesting them. So it's all there to print off and you're ready to go. You haven't got to search around for that sort of information. Next slide, please, Jen. So thirdly, there are some instructions for making butter for the children to spread on their bread. This is a really simple process, which many of you may have done before, of shaking double cream in a jam jar. So a great activity for teamwork, because it can take up to 20 minutes to get your butter, and little arms get tired. So they kind of work together to form that solid lump of butter and learn about the buttermilk liquid that separates off. And it's a fun thing for them to see happen and to understand. And it's great, obviously, to hold on to that buttermilk and use it the next time you make scones. It's a great idea for the children to make butter as their bread is baking or cooling. So it's, again, another opportunity for developing their fine motor skills. It's really easy to spread the butter just as they've made it, but obviously more challenging once it's been in the fridge. And again, you might want to link together that butter making with your herb growing, and for them to choose a favourite herb to mix into their butter, for them to experiment and to create a tasty herb butter for bread as well. And finally, obviously, there's the recipe for making garlic and herb bread for tea, and that comes with suggestions for making it a balanced meal. So serving the bread with veg sticks and a dip, a hummus or a tzatziki or something, and perhaps a vegetable soup in the colder months. So yeah, that gives you a flavour of what our tea resource is all about. And now I'm going to hand you back to Lee to talk through our snacks resource.
Thanks, Faye. Okay, so a sneak preview of the new snacks resource. We've kept the format the same throughout all of our 4 resources, so that you as practitioners and the children in the settings all become familiar with these resources and linking back to early years foundation stage outcomes. They all refer to the literacy links and give a suggested kind of age-related reading list for story time. So just a very quick thing on snacks. So this can be an area of great confusion and a headache to some settings. In society, snacks are often perceived to be higher fat, higher salt, higher sugar foods, such as, you know, biscuits, confectionery, ice cream, cakes. But for young children, a snack simply offers an opportunity to provide some extra energy and nutrients between meals, particularly those with the likes of small appetites. And it can sometimes help to think of snacks as more of a mini meal to avoid confusion with our typical snacking culture. All the same principles of eating well should still apply to a mini meal as such. Okay, so next slide, please, Jen. So the snacks resource contains the following on the slide. I'll give you a little glimpse in a minute. So the story of flour, growing and podding peas and beans, making bean shakers, and a number of recipes to give you some food for thought. Next slide, Jen. So included in this particular snack resource, we've got the story of flour, for example. This resource gives a really nice link to film around harvesting wheat from, I'm sure you've heard of it before, Be Bright, out and about on the farm. It's a really nice way to start a topic so children can visually see the process of how flour is made. We've created a storyboard so children can use the picture cards to order the story of flour and make, you know, a nice display within your settings. There's also loads of sensory activities related to this resource. So, for example, running the hands through a bowl of wheat seeds, talking about what it looks like, what it feels like, and getting the children just talking and genuinely kind of, you know, engaged in the topic. Growing and podding of peas. Children love to grow their own produce and they take real ownership of that. It's a great activity for children. So, for example, you can get them out on a walk, collecting some sticks, and use the sticks to support your pea plants instead of, for example, paying for canes. So trying to keep the cost down where you can. Peas can be grown in containers like the ones on the photo. That's just a plastic trough. Children can watch them grow, they can draw pictures, they can talk about them in groups. And then the recipes have been designed to link the peas and the beans back to the activity. So good old Jack and the Beanstalk, brilliant book to engage the children with. And then we have another activity, which is making bean shakers. You might regret taking on this activity because it is a noisy one, but children love this activity. It really gets the children kind of learning about different sounds. You can also create songs using the bean shakers as a backing instrument. And again, they love that. And the likes of sorting, so a sorting activity, sorting a variety of beans and peas into groups or colours or varieties, depending on the ability of the children. Is really fantastic activity for children and great for dexterity, and especially those children who may require some focus time. And it's also very therapeutic for staff as well, just to be sorting and the children following as well. It's a really good role model to see what they're doing. Children can start collages using dried beans and peas to create, you know, a really nice wall display alongside the likes of your story of flour. And then we've got the literacy links. So every resource has a list of kind of suggested books that might be nice to link with the resource. So maybe choose a couple of books to make the links back to the activity and the recipes throughout your settings to pull the learning all together through a story. And children love to learn through a book. Next slide, Jen. And then so here are the 3 recipes to support this snack resource. So like Faye said, so we've got flatbreads, 2-ingredient flatbreads, which is a beautiful recipe using natural yogurt and self-raising flour. A pea and mint dip using fresh herbs and hopefully homegrown peas, and a broad bean bruschetta. All delicious, all tried and tested many a time. They're great. So the idea of these recipes is 1, to give you a bit of variety in the snacks that they offer, and 2, to link the learning from the activities back to the food on the plate. So learning how peas grow, growing their own, through to tasting them along the way, and then hopefully to try them on the plate, what's been served in your setting. We'd also encourage settings to send these recipes back home with the children, so that children are becoming more and more familiar with new offerings in the setting. And remember, it can take a child between 12 to 14 times to actually become familiar with a new food. So that the more that they're exposed to these types of foods through the growing process, through the cooking, the more chance that they have of actually eating these types of foods. So I hope that's given you a bit of an insight into the new resources. And as we've mentioned, the link will be going up very shortly onto the Skills Hub, where you'll be able to recap and actually have a look at the resources in a little bit more depth. So yeah, watch this space for the launch of the lunch and tastes and textures back in the autumn. But back to you, Adam. Thank you.
Well, thanks both. I thought that was amazing. I thought that they're really great resources. I would ask everybody that's on the call, we've built in time for question and answers. We've got Lee and Faye here, font of all knowledge. So yeah, have you got any questions for around anything to do with the resources or anything that you might want to ask a couple of experts? So I'm going to hand over to you. Yeah, either put your hand up or virtually, or just come straight out and ask any questions.
Hello.
Hello.
Hiya,
have we
it's
got?
Diane. I'm from
Hi,
North
Diane, what's your
Wingfield
question?
Primary.
Go for it.
So I just want to say, first of all, the resources look absolutely fantastic. And I'm sure there's lots of other people who are on this webinar today that are saying exactly the same thing. So thank you so much for that. What I wanted to talk about was, obviously, you know, we're doing lots of things within schools and nurseries, private nurseries, you know, childminders and that, to try and promote healthy eating across the board. It's how do you have those really tricky conversations with parents? And that, because we have some that are really, really good, and, you know, they will do packed lunches and that, and we did the previous training about packed lunches, and we've put out things that, you know, what you could put into them. But we still have a lot of parents who put in the junky food, to put it plainly. And other than go, you know, we can't have that. And we've done this before as a school, and there's been a lot of kickback and lots of things have been put on social media and that about the school itself, you know, stopping children eating and all that, which you don't want. But on the flip side of it, you also want these children to be eating things that are appropriate. So I just wondered if anyone had come across anything before and the sort of things you've said and that to these parents.
Shall I jump in? Yeah.
Go for it, Lee.
It's a very good question. It's a really tricky question to answer because when it comes to the likes of packed lunches, we can only advise and guide as to kind of what would be classed as a healthy option, and especially in this day and age at the moment when everybody's kind of going through, you know, cost of living and all the rest of it. There's a lot of additions in there that are causing a bit of havoc. So my suggestion would be to really, where possible, to try and interact as much as possible with the families, bring them into your settings, you know, invite them in where possible, show them the food offering that is available. It might be that you try and get them involved in the likes of, you know, a parent forum or around food, or, you know, get the children involved with snack groups or food chats and things like that. And really just trying to drip feed key messages back, whether it's through newsletters, whether it's through whatever tech you've got within your settings, around why, and just giving them the key messages, the health messages and why we're doing this. We're certainly not the food police, but it's around kind of key education, and you know, just giving them the information to let them make an informed choice. It's a very, very tricky topic, packed lunches. But where possible, the things like these resources that we've developed, ideal opportunity to actually get families into your settings to see what the children are learning about and why. And to, you know, the recipes are based around cheap, accessible ingredients that can be done at home. So making those links as well, and invite them in for taste tests. It might be parents' evenings, and just trying new foods where possible. But yeah, it's a tricky one.
Thank you.
Let's just have a little read from Karen. Has just left a comment in the chat. Part of the Sheffield Start Well team, we encourage our early years settings to gain the HEY award, the Healthy Early Years. They use this to encourage and inform parents about what's allowed and encouraged in lunchboxes. So yeah, you might want to sort of think about that as well. From what I'm picking up, I think it's that constant communication seems to be really, really key. But you know, whether it's through you know, how you inform parents, how do you get that information around what you're trying to do, just really bring them into the ethos of what you're trying to achieve. And yeah, I think, yeah, Lee's point about not being the food police is important. It's around choice, but we are trying to create those habits. So it does seem that really good communication, just keep those channels open with parents and carers. That's what I'm picking up as seems to be key.
And there's quite a lot of resources in addition to our new resources on the Learning and Skills Hub as well around early years, kind of food choices and ideas for snacks and packed lunches and things like that. So when the link is popped up, do have a look at those as well to kind of give you some key ideas as well.
Great. And another good question, are these resources free? Do you want to answer that, someone, Lee or Faye?
Yes, they are.
Yeah,
They're
yeah,
available on our Learning and Skills Hub, and we will share the link at the end of the session. So yes, and we can also share a link to the general early years area of the Learning and Skills Hub for wider resources beyond the ones that we're sharing today, which has got sort of tips and guidance, hasn't it, around you know, the sort of relationship, you know, with engaging parents, and you know, different foods for different times of the day, recipes and so forth.
And we've got another question here. Can I can I promote you to the settings that we work with?
Absolutely.
Oh, yes, please.
Yes, please do.
Yeah.
Spread
Absolutely.
the word.
We are trying to build a movement. We want, you know, we want as many settings to get engaged and give as many kids, you know, that opportunity to really embed those really good habits. So yeah, feel free.
And in addition to that, we're looking as those commissioned areas within Food for Life. We are, and external as well, we're looking to actually get back out there and do some face-to-face training around our new resources as well. And actually go through the kind of the teaching and looking at the resources through a practical day of training, which come September, hopefully we'll be out and about there in lots of early year settings. Yeah.
Wonderful. Have we got any? Have we got more questions from anybody?
Sorry, I just seem to. I'm Karen from the Startwell team. I just seem to be just chucking questions at you all the time. I've just wondered, where are you based? I know you did the pilot in Nottingham. Have you got any plans to do that anywhere else?
So Nottingham was the event that we delivered on was a celebration event. That was a commissioned area. So wherever Food for Life is commissioned, then we would, you know, they've got a training budget and they can bring us in, and we can deliver whatever the need is within that commissioned area. But it's not to say that we can't work with, you know, it's not just commissioned areas, but that would have to be a conversation outside of this.
Yeah, because I work mainly with preschools, so I'm just thinking about. I know one of my colleagues from another service within Sheffield, Lisa's on the call, and she works with schools. We tend to work. Our team work with nurseries and private and voluntary sectors, and childminders as well. So I'm just thinking about promoting you to those as well. Part of the Healthy Early Years Award that we kind of do in Sheffield.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sounds
great.
That'd be brilliant. Yeah. Yeah.
Great. Any more questions? I don't know if Nikki Smith's still on the call. Nikki, you posted at the beginning that you were hoping to get some new ideas for healthy snacks to try and taste in messy play activities.
Yeah.
Yeah. Have you feel? Yeah. Any questions from you, Nikki?
Just a quick question. So earlier on, I seen them doing the printing with like vegetables and stuff.
In the film, yeah?
Yeah, in the film with like paint and stuff. So we often use like tough trays with like custard in or like spaghetti hoops. I just wondered if there was more of like a healthier alternative to like what we're already doing, if you see what I mean.
Yeah. Watch this space for the next resource coming out. It's very much around kind of textures and tastes, and all of the recipes that we use could actually be, well, a couple of them in the next that are coming out could be used as a messy play activity. So the likes of kind of a couscous, for example, or the potato printing and things like that, that's kind of embedded within the next resources. So hopefully we should get some ideas and hints and tips to you in the autumn term.
Thank you.
Okay. Are there any more questions? Please feel free to use the combined knowledge and skill of Faye and Lee while you've got them here. If you feel free to pop them in the chat if you would prefer. So I'll just give a minute just in case we have any more questions. Michelle, you've mentioned in the chat that Taste Ed have lots of tough tray setups for early years settings. Does that make sense to everyone, or do you need to expand on that at all?
On our learning and skills hub, we do have some links to TasteEd as well. So they're quite easily accessible to have a look at as well. Yeah.
All right, brilliant. Okay, well, feel free. You can, if you do have any questions, just pop them in the chat. But what we're going to do now, before we share the links to these resources that we've just been hearing all about, we're just going to ask you some very quick survey questions just to reflect on what you've heard so far this afternoon. So is that the link in the chat? Jen's just put a link in the chat. It's very brief. It will take no more than 3 minutes. So yeah, we'd really, really love to hear from you. So if you could click on the link, and that will take you to answer those questions. And as I said, it's a 3-minute max job, but hopefully you'll be able to get that done quicker. And so we'll just pause for a moment while you do that. While we're just waiting for the survey to finish, have we got a link to the hub that we can provide? That'd be quite handy if we could put that in the chat, then everyone will be able to go off and explore all of the amazing resources that exist in the Learning and Skills Hub. Oh, great. Thanks, Faye. So the link is there below. So yeah, do make sure that you have a good old root around in there and explore all of the resources that we've got on offer. I think that's probably long enough to have done the evaluation. So I do thank you all for taking the time to give us some feedback. It's really, really useful for us. So yeah, so I think really that is about, so if when you're ready, Jen, if you can share the links to the link that will take you directly to the new resources that we've just been hearing all about. There they are. So all that is left for me to say is a massive thank you to our 2 brilliant trainers for designing and developing these fantastic resources. So yeah, the link is there and that's in the chat for you. I'd also like to give a big thanks to the Food for Life supporting team, especially Jen and also Michelle, and mostly to our brilliant early years community for taking the time out of your busy day to get some new ideas to keep your children curious and engaged in all of the healthy food that you're providing. So yeah, keep us updated. We'd love to hear how you get on. We look forward to seeing you at our autumn webinar. We've had a really good little preview there of what might be in upcoming there. So we'll be sharing new resources that are all about developing taste and texture-based play in your settings, which we really look forward to. So thank you ever so much. And we look forward to seeing you again in the autumn. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Bye.
It's just us now.
Just sent you a message saying, shall we leave?
Yeah.
How do we stop the recording, or does Jen have to do it?
I don't know. Stop recording.
Recording and stop recording. There we go.